Welcome back to Defender of the Republic Live. Today I have a very, very special guest with me, William Rodriguez. I'm going to pull him in. Hi, Willie. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Katie. What an honor, what a pleasure, what a privilege to be with you for the first time. And
Yes.
after many years, we're together again.
So I want to tell my audience Willie is known as the key holder, the last man out. You were a janitor at the World Trade Center for 20 plus years, a hero of 9/11, a whistleblower of sorts of 9/11. You've traveled the world telling your story. You've saved many, many people on that day, and you continue to be an advocate for 9/11 victims and families, and you've dedicated your life to it. So I thank you for everything that you've done and for being the hero that you are. And I'm very, very proud to say that I know you and you helped raise me when I was a little girl. And I consider myself very, very lucky. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, thank you. And really, for me, it's an honor. As you said, as we get closer now to the 22nd year anniversary of what happened, it's been kind of because I have to go through all the feelings every year as we get closer to September 11th, because I get bombarded from all over the world. Because from the very beginning, I was always talking about what happened. I became the go person for everything related to the attack. So it has been a toll, an emotional toll through all these years. And I still suffer from survivor's guilt and from PTSD due to the event. People think that after 22 years, you pick up the pieces and continue. It's not like that. On 9/11, I lost 200 friends, 200 people that I knew very well. And Katie, you remember how I was very well loved in the building. I was a magician. They used to call me Mr. Magic Man. And I knew everybody, and everybody knew me. And I used to live across the street from the World Trade Center, 2 blocks away from the World Trade Center.
I will
So
say, as a young girl, it was very cool that being a block away from the World Trade Center. I remember when you used to take me with you to work once in a while, and we used to, and like you said, everybody was like, "Oh, hi, Willie," everywhere we went. So
yes,
I remember.
I was kind of one of those very picturesque personalities in the building.
Mhm.
Funny, happy, and of course, my life changed after 9/11 completely.
Yeah.
I became a totally different person. More so, didn't believe in anything, but after 9/11, I became very, very emotional. And for those of your listeners and viewers that do not have an idea of exactly what happened on 9/11, let me bring a memory of how the city of New York was so affected by the event that I have a small video that could take you through the steps. Here we go. 9/11 was that event that changed the history of our nation. Um, it has basically created two wars: the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq. On top of that, we lost so many of our rights the way we used to know them. They used 9/11 as an excuse to eliminate those rights with the excuse of protecting us.
Mhm.
We created the Patriot Act that was passed basically to create the homeland security and a new set of rules that we have to live through. A lot of you don't understand well the liberties that we have before 9/11. We had a bunch of liberties, and it was illegal to be detained without a lawyer for an indefinite time. Now, after the Patriot Act, they can do that. It was illegal to open a mail or an email from a person without a court order. Now, with the excuse of 9/11, if they suspect of you, they can do that. And many, many, many things that has transformed our lives, and not for the better. I will tell you that it has affected the world in general, because after 9/11, we had other countries having similar situations. For example, Spain had the 11M attack on the train,
Yeah.
and they use New York and United States rules to basically create the same kind of parameters so they can eliminate those rights as well. We had the Bataclan attack in France. Uh, and it affects everybody. To me, it has affected me more deeply because I'm always telling and retelling my story, and it's a never-ending grief. We get affected, but our ideals and way of life have changed because of this attack. I work on the World Trade Center for, as you say, for 20 plus years. I was a janitor.
Mhm.
The World Trade Center, it was a beautiful place to work. It was if you took one of the towers and you put it sideways, you get from the point that it was standing to all the way to Chinatown. That's how big it was. And it was a complex of 7 buildings. And when you ask people how many buildings fell on 9/11, everybody goes like 2 buildings. No, no, it was more than 2 buildings. It was the whole area was destroyed, because when the towers fell down, everything was destroyed. And
And
one
Building 7 went down like the other.
as building 7 was one of them. On top of that, I got a lot of beef because they came out with an official number of the people that died on 9/11, and I did never agree with it. I did a press conference back in 2001 because we identify a lot of the undocumented workers that were working with fake social securities, and when they look for the social security, the real owner appeared alive in some other state, so
Wow.
they discounted that person. So a lot of the people that died on 9/11 were not counted. And that was when I started doing my activism for the victims. I have previous experience on what happened with the terrorist attack, because in February 27, 1993, um, a truck, a Ryder truck, was placed on the basement of the North Tower, and it killed 6 people. One of them, my friends, Mr. Mercado, and injured over 1,000 people. And that's when I decided that if that ever happened again, because we knew it was going to happen again,
Yeah.
workers knew that this was a never-ending job for the terrorists. That they didn't succeed in the first time, they were going to try to do it again. And so we expected something, not on the magnitude that the building fell down, but another attack.
Yeah.
And but in a way, it prepared me for what was going to come. Um, I work in the building. The first 10 years, I was the janitor for the governor's office. I worked for Governor Mario Cuomo. The governor loved me because he always admired that I was a magician. I used to do tricks and shows, and the first time that I was on his office, I did a magic show when he moved into the new office. And he said, if there's anything I can do for you, just ask me. And I said, yes, I would like to clean inside the building. Could have asked anything to the governor. He was the most powerful man of New York,
Yeah.
but he enjoyed that so much that I was so humble, and I didn't ask for anything that it
Major.
was beyond me. That he said, "Let me think about it." But within a week, I was in charge of the maintenance of his office. But the governor itself, again, he was always late for his press conferences. So he will say, send Willie Rodriguez to entertain the journalists while I get ready. So they used to send me to basically be the clown and the magician and entertain everybody until the governor was ready.
Yeah.
So little by little, I became the person in charge of many of the press conferences. I would have to be the one setting up the microphones and the speech for the governor. He's a famous picture about it. And on his birthdays every year, I was the show. Here's a photo from that.
I remember that office.
Yes, you remember the office?
Yeah.
It was a nice office. It was a nice office, and every time they had a meeting for legislation, which was the most boring thing you can sit through, the governor always requested that Willie was going to be the person giving the coffee, the donut, the little cakes for the legislators. I have to be there basically and serve everybody. And he's one of the photos of one of you see me standing in the back. So yes, I had a lot of experience with politics by being there for 10 years. So I learned the whole process of how you set up a legislation, how you set up a new law, because I saw it. I saw it for 10 years.
Yeah.
And little did I know was that after 9/11, that was going to be basically my best remembrance of when I worked in the building, because I was able to utilize all the tricks and techniques that the governor used to basically get results for the victims. Oh, after the 10 years with the governor, he loses the election, and I was sent back to the company. The company didn't have a job available for me, but the cleaning company.
Hmm.
And they said, there's a job that was done by three people, but if you want to do it, it's going to be just yourself. But if you can do it, you can keep the routine. And I said, I'll do it. I'll do it. You know how Latinos are. We just want to work.
Hmm.
And when they told me you have to clean 110 floors of the building on the stairwells, I said,
Crazy.
what? 110 floors? You mean clean the building from the top down? I said, yes. It was a job of three people, and they are going to eliminate the routine. But if you can do it, you can keep it. I said, well, I'm not going to be without work, so I have to do it because New York is very expensive. And
Yeah.
especially where I was living across the street from the World Trade Center, very, very expensive. I said, no, 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 no. And I started training. It was so because, Kairi, have you ever done 110 flights of stairs?
No.
Have you ever done 25?
No. And I can imagine that it was painful to do every day.
Kairi, at the end of the day, if you did 20 flights of stairs, your legs will be shaking. You will be having spasm,
Yeah.
and you will need 3 days to recover. So basically, I acclimatized my body to be able to do it until it took me a year, and then there was nobody else that could do the stairwells but me, and it was a violation of labor law because it's inhumane. How can you put a person to do 110 flights of stairs? It's just inhumane. But I did it, and I became more respected in the building by my company, by the Port Authority. And the Port Authority, there's so many stories with the top directors of the building, because they used to give me rooms. I used to have rooms in the building, so
Hmm.
I because I was at the same time in charge of all the moving jobs.
Yeah.
So I would have furniture for every office that needed furniture, because people will move and they will give me the furniture because it was so expensive for them to move it.
Yep.
So I would put them in these little offices that was given to me by the Port Authority, with the idea that if they needed something, they can get it.
I remember that. I
Even
remember.
picture.
Yeah.
So anyway, 9/11. Oh, 9/11. It was a beautiful day. It was elections in New York City. It was a Tuesday, and it was a clear day. And I called my supervisor, Anthony Saltalamacchia, and I say, Anthony, I'm not going to work. And he said, No, you crazy. You have to come to work. And the reason that he went crazy was because if I didn't go to work, they had to send somebody, and nobody will finish the job. They will do 20 floors, and then the company will get a warning or a fine from the Port Authority because the job was not done. You
Wow.
see?
Yeah.
And he was like, Please, Willie, you have to come. Nobody wants to do your job. People will punch the car and leave if they have to do your job. So when I notice his sense of responsibility for the company, I say,
Mhm.
"Ooh, time to negotiate. I can negotiate with the guy."
Yeah.
Say, "Well, I will go to work only if you sign my punch card and you put like I came in on time. That way, I don't lose any time, and you have me doing the routine." I
Mhm.
said, I'll sign anything. It's okay. Come, I'll sign it. So I went to the World Trade Center. I got there at 8:30 in the morning. I went straight to the basement number one. The building has six up levels of basement, B1, B2, all the way down to B6. And my support office for American Building Maintenance, ABM, was on the B1 level. I was there. The 14 people, it's in September. These people were vacation replacements. There were new people. They did not know the company. They didn't know the building, where to go or anything. You know,
Yeah.
they will assign uh, different works for them as the day went by, because they were, like I said, vacation replacements. So I have these 14 new people, and I'm talking to the supervisor at the front door of the office. And when at 8:46, we hear boom, an explosion, very loud, a very big explosion that pushes upwards, upwards. The walls crack, the false ceiling fell on top of us, the sprinkler system got activated, everybody is screaming. Remember, we are on a basement, we have no windows, we have no idea to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And the first thing that comes into my mind is that a generator just blew out on the B2 level below me. And the reason that I said that it was because it pushes upwards. And when I went to verbalize it, like 6 to 7 seconds after, we hear "Bah!" all the way in the top of the building. Two separate events, but united by the same tragedy. And all of a sudden, everybody, the screaming was so bad. At the same time, through the corridor that went straight to the office, we hear a man screaming, "Explosion! Explosion! Explosion!" And I look at the guy. He was a black guy, a guy from Honduras, which I later found out. I never met the guy before. His name Felipe David. Felipe David gets closer with his hands extended and what appears to be clothing hanging from the top of the fingertips. As he get closer, we started crying and screaming in horror. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Because we realized that what was hanging on the top of his finger was his skin. His skin got pulled on both arms and it peeled off like when you take off a glove and you let it hang. Was burned 33% of his office, of his body. 33% of his body. And when I said what happened, and he turned his face, all this part of the cheeks was hanging. Now, Kairi, this is in 2001.
Yeah.
That red shirt that he had on, it wasn't the color. It was that he was soaked in blood. And I'm screaming for people to help me. And nobody wanted to touch him because it's in 2001 and we had that famous campaign of not touching anybody with blood because of AIDS.
Crazy.
That was a big thing on television. And don't touch blood, don't touch blood. So nobody wanted to help me. And I'm the guy is hurting. I need help. And
Yeah.
these people, why would they care? They were new employees anyway. They didn't care. And because it was an office for a cleaning company, I knew that we have boxes of cleaning towels, the towels. So I took a box and I started, putting the bandages as bandages around his body. And I said, "Don't move. I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call the emergency medical unit that is located on the South Tower. The South Tower and the North Tower connected through the basement. As I go to pick up the phone and I touch it, my God, something really, really big happened. A big explosion, and it was something like this.
Are now looking at flames shooting out of the north side of number one World Trade Center, but there are at least some windows blown out and smoke. Holy shit!
There was another plane just flew into.
There is an explosion. The explosion is incredible. Buildings at World Trade Center are definitely on fire. There is black smoke coming from both.
This is happening outside the building. I'm desperate. I'm like, we have to get out. We need to get out. Nobody wanted to help the guy. So, but I remember 20 years in the building, Katie. I knew the building with my eyes closed. So I knew exactly how to get the people out. So I told them, follow me. I know the best way to get out. And I put Mr. Felipe David on my shoulder because nobody wanted to touch him. So I started leading the whole group from the area of where there was a hill that went straight to Vesey Street, and that's where all the trucks with delivery came through.
Mhm.
So I took them through that area, and as we go up the hill, I hear the ambulances, and I get to the area of the entrance, the main entrance of the building through the loading dock. And as I get there, I I see an ambulance. I put Mr. Felipe David inside the ambulance. He get first aid, and I hear for the first time, a plane hit the building, a plane hit the building, a plane hit the building. And I look outside, and everybody's looking up with their faces and their mouth open in shock. And that's when I turn around, and it's something like
I saw you, baby. A lot of babies. You don't see people jumping from the windows like you can actually see bodies falling from the top floors of the World Trade Center. It's horrible here. People are standing in the street in tears. People are panicking. They're calling their.
Oh, it's so hard to watch.
it's very hard. And basically, I look up and I saw the hole, I saw the fire, and I saw things falling down, which I thought was debris. Later on, that I found out that it was actually people jumping out of the building. But because I did not see the antenna of the North Tower, I started screaming, "The people from Windows, we gotta go back! We gotta go back!" I meant Windows of the World, which was a restaurant that was located on the 106th and the 107th floor, and I knew everybody there because I used to go every morning there because they gave me breakfast for free, and they give you something for free, you're always there on time, and I was like, oh. My friends are trapped. And I started screaming, everybody, we got to go back. We got to go back. Nobody wanted to go back. Of course, they already saved themselves. And I'm like, well, I'm going back. And while I said that, the whole process of evacuation was starting inside the building.
It's fine. It's gonna run.
And of course, it just like it was so bad because again, I'm doing everything through the basement. I'm going down the hill, and I went straight. I left them because they didn't want to go with me, and they're screaming, "Don't go back! Don't go back!" I went inside the building through the basement, and I went straight to the South Tower. Because after the bomb of 1993, they created something called the OCC, Operation Control Center,
Mhm.
where they managed everything that was a disaster. And I wanted to let them know that I had a man that was burned outside the building. And I
Yeah.
started hitting with the radio, "Help, help," the window. An area that was supposed to be manned and administered for 24 hours because it was an emergency area. There was nobody there. Everybody ran out. Everybody ran out. And while I'm screaming, a guy named Jimmy Barrett came from the basement of the South Tower. The second incident has not happened yet. And when he saw me screaming, he said, Willie, what happened? You don't know what happened. And he didn't understand that, what just went, the explosion or anything at all. Why? Because he was on the sub levels of the South Tower. That
Mm,
indication of how many people probably died without ever knowing what happened.
yeah.
And that was like, too emotional for me and for him. And I say, Jimmy, you have to get out. And I push him out. And as I'm pushing him out, between the North Tower and the South Tower, there was an employee entrance for the Marriott Hotel.
Mhm.
And what do I see there? A security guard, a lady. And I go running towards her. I say, what are you doing here? She's the one that signed the workers to go inside the building. And I said, what are you doing here? And Katie, she told me something that changed my life forever about the sense of responsibility. She said to me, I heard everything, but I cannot leave. I said, why? He said, because I am a new employee and I don't want to get fired. I say, what?
Yeah.
Full sense of responsibility. And mind you, we didn't know what was going on. Still, at that point that I'm going there, the plane, I just couldn't believe it.
Mhm.
We have radios that only have two frequencies, and those two frequencies we had over 2,000 people calling through the emergency protocol. So it was impossible to understand what was going on. So I pushed her out. I took her outside against her will, up the hill, outside the building, another ambulance. And I say, I gotta go back. And everybody was like, but this guy is stupid or what? So, when you speak Spanish
Yeah.
to to, to the supervisor, it's like you are saying something bad, because I say, no, yo tengo que volver porque mis amigos están atrapados. And they were like, what did he say? What did he say? While they're trying to translate, I'm already inside the building,
Yeah.
and I'm going inside, and I went straight to the North Tower. Now, this time when I go to the North Tower, I found only one man that worked for the recycling company, and he's screaming, I hear scream, I hear scream. But the only thing I could hear was the sprinkler system, because there was water everywhere, activated in the whole area.
Mhm.
And but I put my ear in right next to the door of a freight elevator, the K6 car, which was a car, an elevator that went from the B1 level only to the B6. That was the trajectory. And I hear two people screaming, "Help! Help! Help!" He said, "How many people of you in there?" I said, "There's two people, and we're gonna drown." I said, "What?" I mean, I saw
Yeah.
fire, I saw the impact, but I couldn't understand why will people drown.
Yeah.
Just didn't get it, and it was because the sprinkler system on all the floors above me,
Was going down.
that central duct. And these people went inside the elevator. The elevator closed down, and instead of going up, Katie, it started going down. They lost power, and they got encapsulated between the B2 level and the B3 level, and all the water was going in. And because it was a freight elevator, it doesn't have, it's a cage. It
Yeah.
doesn't have a roof like a regular passenger, beautiful elevator with, chrome doors. No, no, it was a cage, and the water was going in with such a force, but it wasn't coming out with the same force. And as the screaming is getting worse and worse and worse, the only thing at that moment I said, God, please help me. And I didn't believe in anything. And when I look down, what do I see? A metal pipe. I took the metal pipe. I opened the doors. The doors opened this way.
Mhm.
And when the bottom door hit my uh, area of the shoes, all the water that was on my side started rushing in, and more screaming. So I stood on the ledge and I looked down, and I see these two people with their eyes that were basically coming out in horror. Help, help, help. And the incredible part, they have water up to their bellies. And I'm like, my God, what do I do? What do I do? But again, I always say that when you have the right information, you
Mhm.
can take the right action.
Yeah.
And I had the right information, because I remember right away that in the area where we have the garbage compactors, the electricians always had different ladders of different sizes, so they can change bulbs and whatever. but they always chain them up against a pillar of a concrete pillar, so people will not steal it.
Mhm.
Because you could go with a truck to make a delivery. Oh, a loose ladder, and they would put it in the truck and steal it. So that's why they chain them. And I'm more like, please let me find one. Please let me find one. And when I get there, they were all chained up, except the longest one of all of them. It
Wow.
was like an 18 feeder, and took it aluminum, and I went straight to the elevator. I dropped it in, went inside, opened the gate. There's a small hatch, and I was able to get Mr. Salvatore Giambanco, which I never met him before either. He was a painter for the Port Authority, the guy that paint offices,
Mm.
and a delivery guy that went to bring an envelope to a company and got caught in the worst terrorist attack in United States. And I said, let me get them out. And I basically took them outside the building, took them to another ambulance, and again started running back inside the building. And everybody go, no, this guy is crazy. Coming back and forth. And I went back inside the building. And when I got back to the area where the North Tower landing deck was at, I found a Port Authority police officer in charge of the K9 unit. And he said, Willie, he knew me very well. Willie, do you have the key? He meant, did I have the master key? At the World Trade Center, there were five master keys. Five master keys, Kairi. The
Mhm.
people with the first four were the actual bosses of my bosses. And I have the key around here. This is the key. They call it the key of hope. The bosses of my bosses. And the reason that I have the fifth key was because in 1996, while I was mopping the 96th floor, I went down a whole flight of stairs because I slipped through the with a mop,
Yeah.
and I hurt my back really bad, and they didn't send anybody to look for me, and I was there for hours. And the building, because it was a Class A building, meant that three doors consecutively didn't open, meaning that the 96th, 95th, and 94th floor, there was no re-entry floors. It says no re-entry, and then you have to go one more flight to be able to get in. So I sued the Port Authority, and I was able to get the key. And the thing that was my saving grace was because I worked for 10 years at the governor's office, that I already had a criminal investigation by the how you call it, the state police.
Mhm.
Because to work at the governor's office, you have to be investigated. So that's what the only reason that they gave me the key.
Wow.
And so I said, yes, I have the key. Let's go. And we made it. We made it to the lobby, and that's when I saw the real heroes of 9/11, the firemen of the New York City. And it was a sad scene, because you have these heroes with over 60 to 70 pounds of equipment in their backs.
Mhm.
To that, the jacket, the helmet, the boots, the whole uniform. And they're there waiting for the 58 car, which was the only elevator that went all the way to the top of the building and all the way down to the last basement. And they have something called the fire access key, which is a key that they put on the elevators in any building. And if the elevator is up, we'll come down to pick them up, or down, we'll pick them up. They went in there, and the police officer said, "Don't wait for the elevator. The elevator is gone." Because when the plane went in, it cut the cables, and people. There were five people in the elevator. They fell down to the B5 level.
Oh man.
And I said, he said, "Follow him. He has the key, and he knows very well the building."
Mhm.
And this unit of heroes started to follow me as I went up, and I started opening the towers. Let me show you the stairwell. This is the actual photos that I gave to the 9/11 Commission, the only ones that really exist. And just to give you an idea how tight those stairwells were. And the reason that I had the pictures was because I had always made a report at the end of the day of areas that had problems.
Mhm.
So when it came to the investigation, I had the only set available. And I started going up, opening doors. The firemen are trained to work in a group. I wasn't trained. I didn't know, what to do in a situation like that. So I did what I thought was the right thing. I started opening doors left and right because that kid opened everything.
Yeah.
And why did I have to open the doors? Because the doors were trapped. When the building oscillated so much, because it was designed to oscillate, but it oscillated so much that the door frames, dislocated, and the doors got jammed. And these were steel doors. There's no wood doors in the building; they were all steel door. And so that's why that key was so essential. The fireman could have broken the doors
It
or
would take
pried
long.
them, but the time that it takes, it was like forget it. So with the key, I was able to go floor by floor and door by door, opening doors so people will get out. It was the most horrific and dantesque memory that I have because people were. Imagine you had an office in front of a window. Those windows were all shattered. The glass shattered, and
Mhm.
people glass on their faces, on their arms. That there were shoes everywhere because people started running, and the shoes were everywhere. And a lot of errors and mistakes that I spoke about it on many of the interviews. Just to make it more compressed, I started getting people out and opening doors, and I found myself, Katie, 2 or 3 floors above where the firemen were, and I got angry. In my ignorance, I get angry with the firemen because I'm saying, those people are not following me. They're not on my same rhythm. What's wrong with them? But I didn't understand that I did not have the equipment in my back, that I
Mhm.
didn't have the uniform that they have, and on top of that, I did the stairwells every day.
Right.
I was in better physical condition than the firemen because that was my job.
Mhm.
So I could go up and down those stairs like nothing. They couldn't. So I continue getting people out. And to make the story short, a group of people came down and said, "There's a man on a wheelchair uh, that is having an asthma attack on the 27th floor." And I said, "I don't know how to help some handicap. I just have no idea." So I said, let me go and tell the fireman. And so I went down 2 floors and I told the fireman there was a man, that needs help. There's a man that needs help. What do we do? And they said, "Don't worry, we're gonna make it there." And we made it. We made it to the 27th floor. And I remember that when I opened the doors, all that unit of heroes, they started collapsing one by one on the corridor. They took their equipment, they dropped that on the floor because they didn't have any more stamina. Their strength was gone. And I said, "Oh my God, what's going on here? Those are my heroes." I mean, I'm seeing them on the floor.
Yeah.
And they how you call it, they say, "Oh, we cannot breathe." I gave the bottled water to all the firemen, and I was able to call my mother in Puerto Rico because I saw somebody using a phone in the office. They said, "Oh, they have service," and I called my mother to let her know that there was an accident in the building in case she saw something on the news. Big mistake. I
Uh,
called. Willie, where are you? He said, "I'm in the building." Wow, you crazy, get out of there. What are you doing? And little did I know was that this was being televised all over the world. Every part of the world that was watching this. And I didn't know that. That's when the realization that this was bigger than I expected hit me. And I said, "Mommy, don't worry. I'm helping these people, the firemen. They don't know what they're doing. In reality, nobody knew what they're doing, and I'm going to help my friends because I have the master key." Say, "Don't go to the fire." And I lied to my mother, Katie, because I said, "Don't worry, mommy, I'm not going to the fire." But my idea was to go through that fire if I had to get to my friends. And I hang up the phone. I call you in a little while. And I hung up the phone, and the radio transmission was like, William Rodriguez location, William Rodriguez location. It was my boss, Jerry Baran, calling from across the street because they had reunited all the workers from ABM, and she wanted me to rendezvous over there at Liberty Park. Uh, and I said, no, I can't. I have to help these people. So I shut off the radio and I continue by myself, opening doors, getting people out, opening doors, getting people out until I get to the 33rd floor. When I get to the 33rd floor, what do I find? A lady, American lady with a red dress, no shoes, blonde, shaking on the floor. And I'm like, what is she doing here? She was new in the building as well, and she didn't know what to do in an emergency. So I threw her up and I said, you got to get out of here. And I took her to the stairwell. To the stairwell, there were two people coming down from the cafeteria that knew me. Magic man, what are you doing? I said, please, guys, help me get this lady out. And I see how they basically took the lady and disappeared through the stairwell. And as I see them go, I go back to the closet and I hear something strange on the 34th floor. I hear boom, something that scratches the floor very hard, and I got scared. First time through the whole process that I really got scared. Why? Because I knew the 34th floor was an empty floor. There was nobody there. There was no tenant. And how did I knew that? Because that's where I used to hide. So the supervisor will not find me at lunchtime. I used to hide there. So for me to hear that, I was like, who's there? What's going on? And I bypassed the only floor that I bypassed was the 33rd floor, the 34th floor. And I continued until I got to the 39th floor, saving people, getting them out. And when I get to the 39th floor, the police officer comes from the other stairwell with two chiefs of the fire department because they have white shirts. And we're talking about what was going to be the next step when all of a sudden across the building we hear this.
The tower appeared to crumble and start to fall. Down. I didn't look anymore after that. I turned and I started to run. Everyone ran. People just took off. People ducked into doorways and people didn't stop
got to be so sick that I couldn't breathe at all. It's really hard to talk. I still can hardly see. There's so much smoke in the air.
It was a huge explosion, and inside my building, we hear pa 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 pa, and on the radio we hear the signal, "We lost 65, we lost 65." And I asked the police officer, "What does that mean?" He said, "It means that the 65th floor collapsed internally, floor by floor, onto the 44th floor, and we're on the 39th floor." I'm like, what the heck? It was only 5 flights away. I have to go up. Now my friends are really trapped. And the police officer said, Willie, no, you've done enough, but you don't get paid for this. I said, what? Like I needed to get paid to help people? And I'm like, I'm going up, Dave. And he said, no, you're still a civilian and you're my responsibility. Better if you give me a hand with the man on the wheelchair that is located on the 27th floor and get out. I said, you know what I'm going to do, Dave? I'm going to go. His name was Dave. I'm going to go to the 27th floor. I will get the man out, but I'm coming back because I'm not giving the key to anybody. And in my ignorance again, I was so worried that if I lose the key, I had to pay for every lock in the building because they told me that will happen if I lost that key. And I was like, okay, let's go. I went to the 27th floor. I screamed. I have orders by the Port Authority police to get this man out. The man, Ed Beye, his name, was already placed on a gurney, rescue gurney. And those heroes, as tired as they were, they stood up and they said, we help you. And we started bringing him down the stairwell. And we hear that huge collapse that I showed you seconds before.
Mhm.
And we almost lost our balance through the stairwells until we get to the lobby. When we get to the lobby, wow, it was all destruction. The South Tower was already gone. I saw that beautiful marble that was on the walls. They all destroyed. There was no marble on the wall. Only thing you saw was the cement patches where they were before. And there, three other firemen that were already in the lobby. One of them looks at me and say, "Get the ambulance ready. Get the ambulance ready." So I say, "Okay, let me do that." And I started going through the front of the building, which was the main entrance that faced the West Side Highway. And as I went there, it was everything destroyed. The revolving doors were gone. There was no glass intact. The only thing I saw was the frame of the doors. That's it. And I stood up there, and what do I see? That across the street on the World Financial Center, almost a block and a half away, they have the area cordoned out with the yellow tape that says "Crime Scene, do not pass," and the police behind it. And the police looks at me from across the street and starts screaming, "Don't look back! Don't look back! Don't look back!" And when they tell you don't look back, what you do?
Look back.
And I looked back, and Kairi, it was the most horrible thing I ever seen in my life. I saw all the bodies of the people that jumped out of the building. Everybody blown out. You couldn't recognize what was a head, what was a leg, because the impact. Imagine a body falling down 96 floors or 86 floor from wherever they were jumping. The impact was so powerful that you couldn't recognize. It was just a body mass. And I saw that and I started screaming, oh my God, what is this?" And when I looked down, the shock of my life. The only recognizable body that I saw on 9/11 of the jumpers, I was right next to the jumpers, was that of that lady that I just helped escape from the 33rd floor. I
Oh,
found that lady, Kairi, cut in half. It's like she said, my speculation is that she came out and said, "Oh my God, I saved myself." And coming out of the door, a glass from the building, from the top of the building, came down with such a force, like a guillotine, cut it in half. It was a part of the body like that, one part on one side and the other on the other side. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is horrible." And all of a sudden I hear, "Run, run, run." And when I hear that, I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And this is what's happening.
They're both down now. It's just a huge cloud of smoke.
The building started falling on top of me, pa, 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 and I got trapped under the rubble. I was like, "Oh my God, please, God, don't let my mother see my body in pieces." I knew I was going to die. I was expecting death.
yeah.
And I, "Please let my mother be able to recognize my body," because seconds before, all those body unrecognizable that I saw, I wanted her not to go through that pain. And it was like all of a sudden I hear this silence and this dust, that famous cloud of dust.
Two airplanes have attacked apparently. What? All right, well then let's go north then.
Imagine I'm at the epicenter of that cloud of dust, and I'm under the rubble, and this is the only thing that I'm breathing.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm gonna die. This is gonna be a slow death. My God, I'm going to die. And again, the first thing that activated my senses there was, remember, I was a magician, and my teacher was the amazing Randy, who was a famous escape artist. And the amazing Randy told me, whenever you're in a situation of trouble, always use the bubble of oxygen that is always encapsulated in the area,
Mhm.
and administer it, and lower your heart rate and your mental consciousness. Just bring it down as much as you can. Go into a semi coma, and that's what I was trying to do. But I wasn't expecting to be saved. I was expecting that it was going to be a slow death.
Yeah.
And luckily, across the street there was two television stations, and one of them said, "The last man out," meaning me, the last man that came out of the building. The last man out was there, and they pinpointed the area, and that's how they started looking through the rubble.
Hmm.
And hours after, I hear vague sounds under the rubble of things being moved around until I hear that, oh my God, there's a rescue or something. I started screaming, help, help, help. I'm very far away. I hear, are you okay? Are you okay? And I said, no, I lost my legs because I couldn't feel my legs. Of course, after going up, down, inside,
Yeah.
so I couldn't feel it. And then my knee was open from one side to the other. I have a wound from one side to the other, and blood was coming everywhere. And I could feel the blood, but I couldn't feel the legs. So I'm like, no, I lost my legs. He said, don't worry, we're gonna make it there. We're gonna make it there. And like an hour after of the communication, I hear that debris is being moved out, and I feel a hand grabbing me by the lapel like this of the vest, that vest that you see behind there.
Hmm.
And when they pull me out, what do I do? I started, oh my God, everything, the dust is still there.
Oh
It's
yeah.
been first. It stayed there for a long time. And I cannot see anything. And I see a light and a guy screaming, this way, this way. And I said in Spanish, me jodí. Because the stories of the people going through the tunnel towards the light. I said, I am dead. They're calling me, and I'm going through the tunnel. I'm going through the tunnel. It's funny, but it's true. That's what I went through. And I'm like, and then as I get closer, it's a fireman with a flashlight, and I see the word ambulance backwards. And
Hmm.
I went inside the ambulance, and they started giving me oxygen, and I started to recover. And within 15 minutes, I said, "Oh my God, I gotta go back." And I said, "Wait, hold on." I ran into the ambulance, and I didn't break a bone. And I started touching myself. I said, I didn't break a single bone. I touched everything to make sure that I had everything. And, but I did have the wound on my leg. I was bleeding, but I went back. And when I went back, that truck, if they waited, Katie, if they waited, I can tell you, probably 5 more minutes,
Hmm.
I would have been dead because when they pulled the truck, the tires blew out. Here's the truck, and right
Wow.
over you will see the little dark area where I was basically saved. So I stayed
Wow.
there, and they. This is a picture when I was pulled from the rubble. There you go. And I stayed there, and my adrenaline was still pumping nonstop. I said, "Yeah, I gotta look for survivors," but I was in shock because that building, 110 floors of building, collapsed, and to what it was a pile of only 5 levels, 5 floors. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
And we were given stethoscopes to look through the to put it to hear sounds to see if we hear people trapped.
Hmm.
Right, I'm talking about once I get pulled out, and somebody goes like this, and it was a cameraman, and he said, "You got 3 seconds to go on the air with your story live." I said, "What? I'm just pulled from the rubble."
Yeah.
And but I did the interview, and that interview went around the world. And I stayed in the area looking. Katie, I there was a bridge, a passenger bridge that went from the World Trade Center to the World Financial Center to cross over, so you didn't have to go through West Side Highway.
Hmm.
And overpass collapsed on top of fire trucks that were there. So I went under, and what do I see? I see two legs, two boots of a fireman. A fireman. The fireman was alive. So I pulled the boot, and I stayed with one of the legs inside the boot.
Oh.
The guy was still alive. I started screaming for help and please help, 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 help. And all of a sudden, people came to give me a hand. We were able to pull the guy out. And once we get to the ambulance, the guy exhaled. The guy died. I used to tell this story the first 6, 7 years, and people didn't believe it. I said, "Oh, this guy's already the story that he has is big enough." Now
Yeah.
he's that other. But 6 years after, for one of the anniversary, there was a reporter in the area that took the actual picture, and that's me. And you can see there's only one booth.
Yeah.
So, it just shows you that, you can tell your real story, and people won't believe it anyway if they don't want to.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's true.
and that's how I was pulled from the area because I just couldn't continue. Um, they pulled me through New Jersey. They
Hmm.
put me in a boat because there was no way to get out of the area if it
Yeah.
wasn't by boat. And within a week, I already had organized the victims, the Hispano victims, and it was the first group that was created after 9/11. And I started doing advocacy and fighting for them. And I became the voice. I created the 9/11 Hispanic Victims Group, and I became the spokesperson because I did the first press conference showing that they were not helping the victims the right way.
Hmm.
That's how my story started. They took me to the White House because of all the work that I was doing. I started writing legislation and benefits. For example, you see, this is an ironical picture, and I'm going to tell you why. That's Governor Pataki giving
Hmm.
me recognition when I created the scholarship program for victims of terrorism. And the irony was that they are recognizing me in the same place that I used to test the microphones for the
Hmm.
government, the same podium. Very ironic. Who would have told me that years after that was gonna happen? And after that, there was so many issues. I was fighting for the new investigation. We wanted to have an investigation about what really happened on 9/11. The
Hmm.
government didn't want to have an investigation, but we pressed. We went to Congress and we went to the legislature many times to try to push for a formal inquiry about what happened. I became the tool for politicians and celebrities. I give you an example. And for the media, I became the expert. It was so hard because after we get the 9/11 commission and I testify, they didn't want me to testify publicly because all the testimony were done televised. And mine was behind closed doors
Why is that?
because I spoke about explosions in the building. And that created this whole conspiracy story about the explosions in the building. And because I spoke about seeing one of the terrorists months before, I testified to the commission about Al Shahiri being in the building uh, months before, and I remember him very well. And I testify about it because they had an I believe they had an alternative plan that if they didn't bring the building down with the planes, they were going to bring down the building with planting explosive in the public bathrooms.
But what made you think that that could be the case?
Because I was working, you may remember that I used to work on weekends to get overtime.
Hmm.
And on weekends, they put me to clean the public bathrooms in the plaza and the mezzanine. And this guy came over, and remember, I'm a survivor of the 1993 bombing. So
Yeah.
my antennas are up. And this guy, Middle Eastern guy, comes over and asking me. We had a gate every time we have to clean, so people will not go in and sleep because of the wet floor. I put the gate, and the guy started checking the gate, and I said, "What do you want?" And he said, "How many public bathrooms are here?"
It's
Well, you
interesting.
have this one, you have the one on the corner, the one by Albon Pan, the one inside the Path area station, and he's just like making a note out of it. I'm like, that's strange. And then he turned and left.
Hmm.
And I spoke to Jim Rajo, who was the Port Authority project manager in the building, and I say, Jim, this happened to me. And he said, you get every crazy guy around here all the time. And he disregarded. And the sad thing is that he died on 9/11. You believe that? The
Interesting.
guy that told me to disregard that.
Yeah.
The,
So how did the media receive the story? If the government didn't want you talking about it, how did the media receive you telling the story to the public?
because remember, Katie, once I get pulled from the rubble, I started talking right away. I never stopped. And I was getting bombarded by media from all over the world. It was nonstop. And so I said, if this happens, talking about the bomb of 93, and I have the opportunity, I will set the record straight because there was a lot of things that were said about the bombing of 93 that were right. So I said, it's my responsibility to let them know exactly what I went through. So I started talking from the very beginning, and just like they couldn't cover it anymore because it was on the public access. It was available everywhere.
Yeah.
And one thing that was very powerful, years after 9/11, I was on tour, speaking tour. When I was asking for the investigation, I went on a tour through Europe, and three of my tours were organized by Annie Machon. Annie Machon is a former MI5,
Mm,
a real James Bond, a
yeah.
real James Bond, and she had officers under her command. And she was retired, and she believed so much in my story. Said, you got to take this story to the masses. And she told me something very, very true that was all corroborated by Ted Gunderson, former director of the FBI. He said, as soon as you stop talking, you're in trouble. So keep talking, don't stop, tell your story. Whether they like it or not, they cannot touch you, because the moment that you stop, that's when you get hit
Wow.
from the experts. And that's why a lot of people say, how come they haven't killed this guy?
Yeah.
Because of that. Because
People
I
say that.
because I've been on the forefront. I got, I mean, thousands and thousands of articles have been written about my testimony. I've been the subject of over 60 plus documentaries in every imaginable language. In Persian, in Chinese, in Russian, in everything. I mean, India and Pakistan. You mentioned it. They have done a documentary about it, and so the story was out there. To touch it and to do something will be very stupid.
Yeah.
To do some harm, it will be very stupid.
Were there other people that were there that day that felt these explosions
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, absolutely. I gave the list to the 9/11 Commission of 14 people that were not called. They were not called, and as a matter of fact, I got to a point that I gather support of very big, powerful celebrities who basically put together for me to actually go and validate the story. So I dedicated myself many of these years to go to people that were there with me to tell their part of the story. And believe it or not, the story is not public yet because I've been doing a documentary for the last 15 years. It changed my life. It changed the way I see the government in general because of the experience that I had, and because I was able to talk to many of the experts, and it opened the door for me to meet with very, very, let's put it this way, people that work for intelligence. I have here um, an interview with Ted Gunderson, former director of the FBI. Yeah, this has never been seen, so I'm going to give you a preview. Okay. I
it?
won't be able to show it, but it's very powerful.
Oh, okay.
What he said is incredible. And sadly, Ted Gunderson, after he gave me the interview, died of cancer. So I got the exclusive of
Mhm.
things that a lot of people don't know about 9/11.
So one of the things that I've seen people talk about, and I don't know if you know anything about its validity, but there were reports of these Israeli art students that had spent a lot of time in the building prior to 9/11.
I saw them. I saw them in the building. Yeah, it was the students.
Yeah.
They basically went into the building without permission. They took a floor and they started doing a project. But just to show you, because it was a city within a city that anybody could have done it.
Yeah.
Uh, it doesn't surprise me. I saw them. I remember I went into. We used to have a elevator operator named Reyes,
Hmm.
and Reyes said, "Look, this guy are not supposed to be here." He said, "Well, let's say something." He said, it's not our problem. And look,
Architects for 9/11 truth have shown over and over and over this was controlled demolition, how these buildings went down, both, the towers and building 7. Is there a possibility that what you experienced was a controlled demolition?
good question. And I'll be honest with you. And it's the same thing I said to Rachel Gage and his organization is
Mhm.
that I am not an expert in explosives. I never seen a bomb in my life.
Yeah.
Don't know how they make a bomb either. But my story gave foot to the whole theory because of what I testify. Um, I leave that to the expert because I cannot speculate something I don't know anything about.
When you met with politicians and you met with George Bush at the time, how were you received? The official story that was released to the public is questionable, just like a lot of things that had commissions. It's always been questionable in terms of what the story was that the government's putting out. So,
True.
because your story differed, were you received in a good way by these government officials and by
Yes.
George Bush?
No, no. I was no. Honestly, I was very well received, and again, at that time, I didn't know anything that was going on because this was at the very beginning. They're recognizing me for the work that I'm doing for the victims there,
Yeah.
and I was honored to go to the White House, and it was when I started questioning the official story, when all the support and all the uh, um, benefits that I was supposedly was going to get was totally taken away. Like,
Hmm.
oh, this is opening a can of worms, and that's when everything changed. But I remember the meeting, and that's why the famous photo. I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah.
This is at the very beginning, and it's when I started the whole process. Remember, I had the RICO lawsuit against the president of the United States. It was me who sued the president of the United States, and that created a lot of
But
frictions
you
as well.
sued Bush?
Yes,
I
public
didn't know
knowledge.
that.
Didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, it's the RICO lawsuit. Didn't know that? Wow. Yeah, you see, there's a lot of things you don't know. It was very public and it was a big scandal.
Uh-huh.
I I sued him and Donald Rumsfeld and the whole cabinet. I basically sue everybody. What I wanted to do is sue him for the information and because I wanted the investigation to be done. And but I had a strange lawyer
Mhm.
who started putting on every possible conspiracy theory into the lawsuit, and he didn't understand much of the stuff. And I have to basically, uh, I stood in front of the federal judge, and he wanted to dismiss the case the first time, and I say no, you can't. He said, well, you are a survivor, and you are receiving the federal compensation fund. He said, oh. I denied the federal compensation fund that was created to save the airline industry and everybody that had an interest, like the Port Authority and things like that. That was the reason that was created
Mm.
by the government. So I did not apply for it. I did not accept it. So I retained my right to sue. And the judge said, "Wow, yeah, you're right." And my lawyer didn't even know that. So imagine. No, they were sending me revised parts of the lawsuit, and I said, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this. and amendments. And it got to the point that because it didn't go to the levels or to the steps that I had to go through the federal government, it was dismissed. But if I got a good lawyer that would have fought for that, forget it. It would have been a scandal without
Yeah,
end. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't imagine they make it easy to sue the federal government and those high profile names in there.
Yeah. No, no, it wasn't easy.
Did you ever end up receiving the information you were looking for?
Some, but it was through back doors.
Mhm.
Remember, I met people like Ted Gunderson, former FBI director, people from the FBI, people that respected what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because, Kyrie, I didn't have anything to lose. I lost my job. I lost the place where I worked for 20 years. I lost 200 friends. I lost so much that I didn't have anything else to do but to open my mouth and to signal the people that were in charge to do something for the victims and survivors and everybody affected by the event. And they didn't want to do that because they didn't want to look like they were taking advantage of 9/11.
Mhm.
But we have to do it. Bush designated Kenneth Feinberg, director of the Grand Master
Mhm.
for the Federal Compensation Fund. What did I do? I went to every press conference that that man made. And every time I asked a question, he said, what are you going to do with the people that died that didn't have any papers? No, it's a federal program, cannot work, cannot help them. It's a federal program, it's only for citizens. And I did it until like the fourth or fifth press conference. I went in and did the same question, and he was like, "Okay, yeah." He knew my name by them. Willie, if you are able, the name says it. They're undocumented. They cannot be identified. If you can identify them, I help you. And
Mhm.
that was the biggest mistake he ever made because Telemundo and Univision were there,
Mhm.
and I told them, listen, you heard what he said? I need you to give me a PSA, which is a public service announcement, on both channels. And I called for the people to identify themselves so I can get them help. Within 90 days, I was able to identify over 2,200 people that were not counted.
Wow. A lot of what the victims had gone through. It
Oh, we have
sounds to
some
me like it
work.
was very difficult for them
It's
to.
still difficult to this day. Katie, they have what they call the World Trade Center Health Fund, and it's a joke. For the first time, I asked for help on April this year, and they put a set of parameters and requirements that are inhumane for people that were affected. You see all those announcements on lawyers. Oh, if
Oh,
you
yeah.
were in the area, call us. The requirements are so stupid and so long. Look, I'm recognized. There's hundreds of thousands of news items about me worldwide
Mhm.
that I have to basically prove that I was there.
It's
I
crazy.
mean,
Well, the
ridiculous.
problem is it didn't just affect a small area of people. I remember going there a week later and there was dust everywhere, right?
That does, of course, imagine an office with the fluorescent lights. That has selenium gas, which is cancer. It gives you cancer. It says the label.
Yeah,
Imagine tens of thousands of those blowing up at the same time when the towers collapse. On top
exactly.
of that, all the diesel for the machinery. On top of that, all the toner, because the toner is very harmful to your health.
Mhm.
Imagine all the CRTs. Before we didn't have the flat screen, we have the big televisions
Yeah.
type of thing. All of that blowing at the same time. All of those elements got together in the area and it created a toxic environment. Remember the problem with Christine Whitman that said the air is safe to breathe,
Yeah.
only because she wanted to reopen Wall Street. You believe this?
Yeah. But that's the issue that people are going through now is that they don't trust what's being told to them. And, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and maybe you could help the audience help the victims that still suffer today. What can people do to bring awareness to all of this or to help affect change?
Well, this is a two episode show.
Yeah.
Number one, support to the families, victims, and those people affected by the event. People say never forget, never forget. People are forgetting.
Mhm.
People forget because all they see about 9/11 is two towers falling down, and they forget that that was full of people. Over 25,000 people were there.
Yeah.
Number two, pressure into what is Congress for the programs for victims. I can tell you there's so many issues that victims are not getting any help. They got to change the requirements and parameters, like I told you. And on top of that, awareness that this is going to happen again if we don't do something. People think that because it happened in 2001, it's not going to repeat itself. People hate us because of our values. People hate us because of our beliefs. People hate us because of our form of government.
Mhm.
And it's outside and internally.
And that's the issue, is that there are people out there that believe that it's our own government that's involved. I mean, there was also a document that was released about the CIA having prior knowledge that
Oh, that was prior knowledge. Well, we knew that. We knew that there was, and it came out on the 9/11 Commission that there was an FBI agent who identified the hijackers taking lessons of how to fly a plane, and a supervisor told him to stop the investigation. That came out on the 9/11 Commission papers. But the problem was, Katie, that they didn't do anything with the people that had responsibility. Not a single person was fired.
Mhm.
Not a single person was taken to a legal recourse. Nobody was jailed for dereliction of duty. It was their job. They didn't do it. I get more respect, attention, and support from outside United States than I get from here.
Yeah.
It's incredible that I go to a country where I just came from Monterrey, Mexico, to do my speech, and I got the show center, and it was full. I mean, almost 6,000 people to hear my story.
Yeah.
I'm going back in October to another presentation. I was at the Excel in London for the GPU, the Global Peace and Unity Conference, 50,000 people. I went to South Africa, 100,000 people. Why 100,000 people? Because I was presenting myself with the former prisoner of Guantanamo, Moazzam Beg, and
It's
people wanted
odd.
to see
I
the fight.
don't get that here.
And I did it, and I went, and the thing was, very emotional. But if I get those audiences outside my country, it's a shame because
Why don't we get those audiences here?
that's my question.
I think part of it is the confusion around what happened that day, is that people tend to shy away from something they don't understand. And
Yeah.
that's why I wanted you to tell the story of what you saw that day, what you experienced that day, and how it affected you and many others years later. Younger generation may not have been there. They've been around for it. They were too young to experience it. But because of the confusion around what happened and how sad the story is, people tend to go into a bubble and they don't want to hear it. But just like you said, it's important to understand what has happened to us and what people had gone through our history so that it doesn't repeat.
Not only that, but like you mentioned, give you a big hint. You go to the memorial, you won't find my story there. And I was one of the people that pushed for the memorial. I represented the Hispanic Victims Association as part of the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation
Mhm.
to the whole reconstruction of the area and to the creation. I was part of that. But would you find my story? No, because it goes against what they stand for. You won't find it there. Did you find the truck where they pulled me from the rubble? You
Yeah.
find treasure where I put Mr. Ed Beye down. But you won't find my key and you won't find me there because it's too much of an explosive story.
Well, I hope we get justice one day and disclosure one day, because I think it's owed to the public to
Yes,
know what really happened on that day. And
I believe that. I believe that. And like I said, it's been a slow process, but it's because people don't understand the will of the family. They expect you, Katie. They're waiting for the people to die, the family advocates to die. That's what they're expecting, and that way the problem disappear, and
yeah.
many of them are gone because of age, because they got COVID, whatever.
Mhm.
But many of them are inactive now, and whoever are left, we have that responsibility.
Mhm.
Me, I don't care. You know why? Because number one, I don't do it for money because I was offered millions of dollars from Hollywood and everybody to do my story, and I got enough celebrities to do my story.
Mhm.
Number one, that's not it. Number two, fame. I'm living history. I am living history. They have done already amount of books, articles, documentaries. So, I can die tomorrow and my story is going to continue.
Yeah.
So it's not because of that. I do it because I have a responsibility. And my responsibility is to those souls that I lost on 9/11, my friends.
Mhm.
I'm here because of a second opportunity, not because I want to. It's because I was given this role. I
Yeah.
have a sign here. Who do you help today? And
Yeah.
I wake up every morning and I could be depressed, and I get depressed, very, very, very badly depressed, because I have to relieve this every day. And I say somebody else needs me, and I pick up the phone and I start, looking for ways to help that person.
I
So
love that. And you said something during early part of your story when you said, you weren't a believer. And
yes,
one of the things that I was just talking to my friends about this the other day is that I truly believe that our story goes along in a way that we were meant to be here for a reason. And a lot of the things that happened to you, you didn't understand at the time why it was happening, right? You may have seen you're falling in the stairwell and hurting your back really badly as a really
to
bad thing back then. But you didn't realize that it happened because of potentially this, right? It gave you the ability to have the key to save others. And what an amazing thing that is.
yes, it's true. The thing with the governor, how he pushed me to be on every press conference. And look, I knew exactly what to do when it came to 9/11. I knew how to make a press conference. I basically copy everything that he did.
Yeah, and that's why you took that crazy job walking up and down the stairs every day.
Little did I know. Little.
What's next for you?
Oh no, continue fighting. That's what I do, and I keep doing my conferences all over the world, and I try to teach people lessons in the middle of adversity,
Mhm.
how to motivate, and how to teach them the same things that I learned the hard way. So they basically, a lot of the youngsters that are coming to hear my story, the message is very clear. If I, a janitor who didn't graduate, uh, was able to change the history of the United States and the politics of the United States just by doing this with motivation, disposition, and enthusiasm,
Mhm.
imagine if I had the training that they are having right now, so they can do 10 times better than I do now, just
Exactly.
by basically putting their minds to it. So that's the simple message, but it's a good message.
Absolutely, it is. I want people to take from this conversation as well is that we all have a responsibility to each other to
Yes.
make sure that we hold our officials, our leadership accountable.
Don't
We
be
want to
afraid.
make sure that they're
Don't be
doing
afraid to open your mouth to a person in power. If what you believe is morally correct, you will win always, always.
it.
But
Mhm.
do what is right, and that's what I learned the hard way, but I learned it.
Agreed. Willie, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on. I'm very, very grateful. And again, I'm very honored and proud of you for the hero that you are and continue to
Oh, I
be.
love you. What are you talking about? I do it to you anytime. You have done great things for yourself, and I'm very proud of you. I'm always admiring how much you have done. So thank you for the opportunity you giving me to be here and talking to your audience. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.